Hello, hello. Can Keaton Sansi please come to the stage? All right.
All right. Well, there's a long line for desserts. We've got a lot of dessert lovers out there. But yeah, just grab your desserts as you can and take a seat, and we'll get started. First off, just wanted to say thank you for being here. I just looked over or said something to Jared while we were watching all the photos and the videos of just the past, and I've gained a lot of weight, and no, actually not that much weight, but I was thinking how cool it is just to see all these kids that have grown up over the years, and to see videos of baptisms and videos of trunk or treats and all the different things that have happened here. It's pretty awesome, and it's great that we have someone who's like a professional videographer leading worship every week. So that was helpful. Just to get started, why don't we just introduce everyone who's up here, and then I'll start asking some questions. My name is Tyler. I am one of the pastors here, and I get to be the person who asks the questions tonight because I don't have any of the answers. So.
And my name is Jared, and I am one of the pastors here as well.
I'm Sela, and I'm the children's director.
That's Sela, and she's the children's director.
Is it on? Oh, yes, it is on.
My name is Keaton, and I have been coming to the church with my wife Brittany for 4, maybe 5 years, and I've been part of the team that's helping cast the vision for tonight and helping direct on raising the funds for the building.
And I'm John Ingebretson. I'm going to bring a little history to the whole program.
All right, great.
He's
have
also
the good
our
mic.
board chair, so
yes. Apparently, I have the good mic that works louder than everyone else's. But I just want to start off with you, John, actually, because you have been at this church longer than I've been alive, actually. And I think that's really impressive and a testament just to your steadfastness. But I wanted to hear from you. Maybe just kind of share your journey with this church and just how you came to be here.
Sure. Roz and I moved from the Midwest. I was transferred by a bank, a major bank in Chicago, out here in actually way back in 79. And we were raised in other covenant churches that were part of the ECC, the Evangelical Covenant Church denomination, which this church is part of. When we got here, we found a covenant church, which was Squaw Peak Covenant Church down at 36th Street in Campbell, which is just south of Camelback. A group of us there at that church who lived up in this area decided that we want to see if we could start a church up here. So we started meeting in a house and had weekly meetings until we got some momentum. And then we called a pastor who basically we view as our founding pastor, Bill and Sandra Notehelper. The room there next to the worship center is named after Bill Notehelper. He and his wife were driving around one day, and they saw this property, which was a horse property. And Sandra said to Bill, why don't you go in and ask the owner, knock on the door and see if they might be willing to sell. And he did. Lady answered the door who owned the ranch, 9 acres here, and ended up, she said, I really don't want to sell to a developer. I want to sell to a church. And the rest is what you would say is kind of history. Bill Notehelfer, just a quick little history there. He's kind of unusual background. He was the son of German missionaries to Japan. He grew up in Japan during World War II. He actually heard the bombs from some of the airplanes. Doolittle's raid, actually, is what he heard. He loved playing golf. He loved sports. He was very competitive. Because we were growing it to what you see today.
I think there's even some pictures of that. There it is.
Yep. And that was a result also of we had a traditional service, and then we started a seeker service for people reaching out, trying to figure out where they're at with their walk of Christ. And that was called Crosspoint. And that service was run by Pat Stark, who is now with the Pacific Southwest Conference of the ECC. We then built another 3 classrooms to the north, and that was supposed to be for adult education. And then finally in the early 2000s, we built the last building with some more classrooms that you see across the way to the west. So that's kind of a quick summary of the history here.
That's great. One of the things I wanted to know too, how has being at this church for this long of a time, how has that impacted you, your family, your 2 daughters? One of your daughters is my kids' doctors, so.
We have 2 daughters. We have 6 grandchildren. They each have 3. And they both met their husbands at the youth of this church. Karna and her husband, Jason, are now executive pastors of City of Grace Church, which has 2 campuses in Phoenix and 1 in Las Vegas, 1 online. Britta and her family, they attend here at Desert City. She's a pediatric PA, and some of you have children that do see her. Brandon, her husband, is the head service manager for Scottsdale Audi. And there's so many other people here that I could list them all off, but that are here tonight, and their children were raised through the Sunday school, summer Bible school, as well as the youth programs.
Oh, hopefully we didn't put any ideas in these kids' head. We're getting dessert right now, meeting your spouse at youth group. That's pretty rare. It doesn't happen that often, okay? So, one thing that I wanted to ask was, now, like going forward, what are some of the things that you guys have had to overcome as a church? What are, how has, now that you've gotten to see your kids grow up here, and it seems like, that now there's a new season. What are you seeing?
First off, extremely blessed to be able to have purchased this property when we did, 9 acres of land. And we had visions after seeing what you see here of expanding out, maybe getting a 1,500 seat auditorium, worship center, an office building, and even more classrooms. We even had some pre-school here for several years as well, and tried to work that out. We had very good success under Bill Notehelfer. We had very good for 18 years, and then we had very good success with another pastor, Frank Switzer, who's now at Arcadia Redemption Church. And then we went through a period of time of struggling with some the staff and some other things that did not work out through the time. And then we end up with the miracle of 2+ years ago with Desert City Church joining us. And you know, we're legacy. We call ourselves legacy members, and the reason we do is because it's a word that was coined by Gary Flossie. But you ask his wife and Carol Flossie says, "Well, what does that means? That means you're just old." So anyway, my last point is, and it's kind of unique, and that is that we've got 40 years that we've been here. Kind of like Moses going through the desert, wandering in the desert for 40 years. We did have wonderful success, but now we're ready in 2024 to see what the promised land is for this community, and really looking forward to it.
Awesome. Thank you, John. I guess next up, I'm going to talk to you, Jared.
Yeah.
First off, what are we doing here, and why are we here?
Yeah. I'm the why, not the what. We wanted to just paint that picture. We are part of a story of this property. And with all of our involvement in church, we're working on the sacrifices of people who've come before, and I think those stories are important to tell. For me, a verse that has just has been like my ministry vision is Isaiah 41, and it says, "I will make rivers flow on barren heights and springs within the valley. I will turn the desert into pools of water and parched ground into springs, so that people may see and know and may consider and understand that the hand of the Lord has done this, that the Holy One of Israel created it." And that idea of bringing life to places that feel barren, life to places that feel like a desert, was really how this name Desert City came about. And with the story of the Desert City side, with the story of the Paradise side, we've just seen God inject new life into this community. And the idea of being a part of a story like that, where the hand of the Lord, you would look back and say, only God could have done this. I want to be a part of stories like that, where we say, only God could have done this. And our congregational life is a witness and testimony to who God is and what God has done. And so, like, as a pastor, like I want to always be a part of stories like that, where we are saying, we're a part of the church, we're a part of God's church, the body of Christ. The gates of hell will not prevail against us, and so we're going to continue to, as a church, move forward. And now is a season to do that. The second thing is, I think this is a responsibility I have felt with the story of us coming together, and with the story of this property, is that this church has been entrusted with 9 acres in North Phoenix. That's really hard to get a hold of, and it's an incredible blessing that has miraculously throughout the last 40 years come together. And I feel like a responsibility to steward this property well. And one of the things that we want to do is maximize the property. And so you got to hear different times where there were steps that were taken with this church to help maximize this property, to be a good steward of the property for the kingdom. And this is another step in maximizing that property. And what we're going to look at tonight is the northeast part of our property. And specifically, we're trying to create space for more people. We're thinking ahead. We're thinking of the next 5 years. The staff and I were hanging out with the storage in the office, and we came across these old plans from the year 2000.
We don't typically hang out in the storage room, but
no, we were trying to throw stuff away when we came across this, and this is my junior year of high school that these plans came together for the whole property. And so you can see, like, there was a vision all the way back to when Bill Notehelfer was here and where they wanted to take this campus. And I would say, like, as we build this out, like, the idea is, like, we don't want to just, like, become another mega church, or, like, be big for the size of saying, hey, look how great we are. But I do want this place to be a resource church, a church that has incredible influence in this community and globally. And so, like that will lead to all sorts of things down the road. But I do, with what we've been entrusted here with the property, I want to maximize it so that we're a high impact church that does a lot in this community. And so, what we'll be looking at tonight is to the top right corner. You could see where I know the children's classroom is going in. And we've changed the plans a little bit. We'll show a little bit of those plans. But the idea is to create space. Specifically, this will create space for our children, and we'll talk about that in a second. But it's going to create space for our teenagers. We have a really large children's ministry that is about to move into youth ministry. And then it will create more space for adult ed on our campus, for groups to meet, and for a prayer room. And so this is helping our capacity. And we feel like we can grow in our sanctuary right now, but some of the other places on our campus, we need some more capacity. And so our hope is to create more space. And we're specifically looking at children right now as we've contextualized the neighborhood. There's a lot of children in this neighborhood. And so to create a space for them, it's the next generation of the church. And I was reading through some statistics, and statistics you can make, say a lot of things, but there was one that I came across that most people will give their life to Jesus before they turn 18. I think it was like 87% of people who give their life to Jesus do that before 18. After they turn 18, that drops. It's like 13% of people do that. And so really, if we want to talk about revival and renewal, investing in that next generation is so important. And so this next step is specifically for that children's wing, but it will have ramifications for the whole church for all sorts of different things. So that is the why we're doing this.
Yeah, and if you've been here for any amount of time, you've probably seen that we are overrun with children, and there's lots and lots of them. And so this is really exciting. I guess this moves on to a little bit of what it's going to look like. I don't know if we have. Okay, there's the floor plan.
So it's a 5,500 square foot building. It had started out as a 3,600 square foot building, and it just kept growing. And we realized if we're doing this project now, it's going to be cheaper now to expand and maximize that part of the property. And so it's going to be a big box. There's going to be a dividing room, and in there we're going to be able to run our children's ministry orange curriculum. There will be a stage set up. A dividing wall comes out that leads into a lobby. So we don't really have lobby space on campus. We have a beautiful patio, but it's really hot for a lot of the year. So that will be a place for people to hang out. There'll be a coffee bar in there. And then that room, there's a big sliding glass door that will open up onto the patio. So there's times in the year we'll be able to open up the whole thing, and it will just be kind of this indoor-outdoor building. And then we'll be able to close it down at other times. And then there'll be 2 classrooms attached to it. And so we're going to be able to fit, 250 children a Sunday on campus. Right now, we have room for about 100, and we're like right about at that on Sundays. So this will like double our capacity for children, as well as opening up the other rooms on campus. So,
and I think there are some pictures of what it could look like. These are just some renderings that the architect came up with for us. But Sela, you are the children's director. You guys have been here a long time. What is the inside going to look like? Do you have any insight to that?
Yes. So we have hired House of Form interior design firm to help us design this space. We have some ideas as well of what we're hoping the space will look like and what it will feel like. And so 4 words that came to mind were minimalistic, inviting, calming, and happy. And so inviting is a really big one because experiencing life that is truly life is one of our vision statements. And I feel like that highlights our desire for authentic community. And we really desire for this to be a space that people want to be and want to gather together. So that's what we are hoping to achieve with this building.
Awesome. Yeah, and you guys have been at this church since you were basically a kid.
That's what it feels like.
Yeah, maybe just tell us a little bit about you guys and how this church has impacted you.
Yeah, so David and I started coming to this church when we were newly married. I was still a senior in college, freshly 21. And so it really does feel like we've grown up here. And just having Jared and Marcy and so many families pour into us over the years has been such a blessing and so special. And it's really exciting that we now get to do that for the younger generations.
And one of the things that I love is that like we kind of started going to this church right after Sela and David, and now like our kids are becoming best friends, and it's just a beautiful thing to see. And a lot of it is thanks to the faithfulness over 40 years of people like you, John. And I know that you've been talking to families just about the kids ministry and things that they are impacted by with the kids ministry. What are some of the things that you've heard from them?
Yeah, quite a few of our families have all said similar things that their kids love being here. They feel a lot of pride in this church and being a part of this community, even at a really young age. And so a few families have said that as they drive by, the boys always say, "That's our church." Um, a few other kids ask if today is a church day. And let's see. One of the families also said, "We feel like we've found a supportive community for us as parents, and also one that nurtures our children spiritually and emotionally. And it's one of the best parts of our week being at church."
That's awesome. I'll add to that. My kids, when I told them that we're going to build a new building for the kids, they got so excited. And Judah started asking if he could bring a hammer to church so he could start knocking down the wall. So if he's out there right now hammering on something, it's not my fault. All right, I guess that brings us to Keaton. Keaton's not just a pretty face. He's up here for a reason. And so Keaton, you're here because you do fundraising for a living.
I do.
Tell me a little bit about that.
Thanks, Jared. Very generous of you to give me your microphone. Yes, I do. I do fundraising for a living. I get to work with a nonprofit organization here in Phoenix, and essentially, what I get to do is I meet with people that are super passionate about the work that we're doing. I get to share with them the different projects we have going on and invite them into those projects to be a part of it, to invest in it, and they get to see their dollars and their investment do amazing things for the kingdom of God. So a couple things real quick that I love in my job is I get to see the transformational nature that giving has on individuals' lives. Seeing them have more freedom and peace and joy as they trust God with their resources, as they invest in something that's bigger than themselves, whether it's their community or different projects or different people, or even investing in impact in different areas. One of the neat things about good fundraising is that it is we go at it with an abundance mindset, that we never feel or think that we're competing for dollars with anyone else, any other organization or ministry or church, that we know that God owns the cattle on 1,000 hills. And if he has ordered the work to be done, if we truly think that we're relying on the Holy Spirit to guide us and to lead us, then he's going to accomplish that work. And what I get to do is just invite people in to be part of that. And I don't have to say, without you, this isn't going to happen. Without you, this isn't going to work or get built. I get to say, would you be a part of something bigger and invest in something that will have a kingdom impact. And then in 5, 10, 15, 20 years, you get to say, I was a part of that and I saw that change happen. And then the third part that has been really neat in this role is my wife Brittany and I have been able to experience just different types of generosity in our own life and seen how it's impacted us. But it's also, I think, jump started a conversation early in our marriage on what it means to be generous, and we've seen a joy and a peace and a freedom come as God has called us to be generous, and we have accepted that invitation and trusted God. And we've seen cool little miracles happen where we'll both independently have a thought of an area we want to be generous. God will give us a number independently, and we'll come together and just know it's absolutely from Him. So that's what I get to do, in a little bit of the impact it's had on me.
That's awesome. Well, maybe what are some of those lessons that you've learned in being generous?
Yeah, I think as I was thinking about this question, one of the biggest things is part of the reason why I had been generous in the past was just to be a good Christian, to be a good boy. And, I could unpack that a little bit more and how that impacted other areas of my life. But my therapist also needs to feed his family. So I'm going to leave that for him. But I think now, instead of just trying to hit the, 10% that God has that is in the Bible and just trying to be obedient, instead I've seen, again, this freedom and this joy come into our lives and into our finances as we have accepted that call to be generous. I think also, as we have been able to practice generosity in a financial aspect, it unlocks other areas of generosity in our life as well that are probably easier than financially, but it just pulls out a roadblock where we can see areas where we can be generous with our time and with our talent and our belongings and our influence and our thoughts and our words. And this has just helped that. Say all of that, not as a gloat, but just to say, man, I work with people of great means that can support in really significant ways. And Brittany's and our generosity looks really different from that. But we are also called to be generous in whatever area of life we're in. And we're not by any means like down the road on this generosity thing, but I'm just sharing little lessons we've learned and are trying to put into practice in our own lives.
It also seems like there's this freedom that comes with generosity. Could you maybe unpack that a little bit?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that freedom looks like is you start to loosen the grip on things and you start to feel like you have to hoard a little bit less. There's a freedom to know that I'm not fully in charge of my finances, that God is in control of that area. And this is a tactical way for me to actually practice having that trust. And that's not a tit for tat relation thing. It's not a prosperity gospel thing. It's also not which is my nature of schlepping my responsibility to understand my own personal and familial budget. But it is a way of just releasing that a little bit in a practical way. Quick story. I've got a toddler, 2 years old. We've all experienced toddlers, but he's pretty good when he's at your house and he's good at sharing toys with your kids. But when he's at our house and he's playing in one corner with his Legos and we have a toddler, another family over, and he sees them pick up a ball and take it, he sprints over there and says, that's mine, takes it out of his hand. And I was thinking through, man, there will be so much more freedom for Cooper when he doesn't have to have his head on a swivel, when he doesn't have to be in control of his things. And he understands that, that's not even my ball. That was from my dad or mom or grandma or whatever. And I just get to use it. And there's going to be more joy in me letting someone else use this ball. And then as his dad too, I have so much joy if I offer an opportunity to say, hey, Cooper, will you let Cohen, play with that ball? And he says, yeah, and goes over and hands it to him. And that brings so much joy in my heart. And I think it does the same thing from our Heavenly Father, that he's not just keeping score of if we're generous or not, or accept an opportunity to be generous, but it brings him joy knowing that it brings us freedom and ultimately joy.
That's great. Maybe that's a great segue to Jared talking about what's next.
And so even we wanted to talk a little bit about generosity because this project will happen. We believe that God is in it. And one of the stories that jump-started this project is we were kind of thinking of the plan and looking at like where the growth was coming with this church, and this church is growing. We had a gift come in about a year and a half ago for $300,000 that was anonymous. And I remember Charlie Har was on the board, and we were saying, if there was ever like a sign for God, like this is seed money to start a project like that, like they just came in out of nowhere. We have no idea who gave us it. And Charlie said, well, this is going to take a long time, so you should probably get started. It's going to take a couple of years. That was a year and a half ago, and here we are getting started on it. And so as we look at even the budget for this project, we're looking at about 1.5 million, and the church right now is in a great spot. And as we have grown, what we've noticed is that we've grown in numbers more than we've grown in giving, and sometimes it takes a while for the giving to catch up with where the growth is. But we think that this is an opportunity and an invitation for people to be generous. And as a pastor, I want to continue to do this for our people because I think it's a huge discipleship matter. As we are followers of Jesus, we follow a generous God who invites us into generosity. And the teachings of Jesus, something like 25% of them are about our resources. And so that's like 1 in 4 sermons, that I could be giving. But it's not because Jesus needs the money. Jesus isn't raising resources for a church. But what he's talking about is just the hold it has on the human heart. And so, like, giving us opportunities to be generous for things that make a difference here in this community, but also for eternity. We just want to keep inviting people into that. And so, as we look at this project, there's a lot of people who give to this church, and it's amazing. It's sacrificial. It's rhythmic. And this is an opportunity for others who haven't given. If everyone would, we would knock it out. But we also want to give an invitation to give above and beyond what you're giving. And we think that when we honor God with our resources, He just does amazing things with it. And so as we've had seed money come in for this, our hope is to raise the whole thing from our congregation. We have, because of the denomination we're a part of, a thing called covenant properties that we can connect with and borrow from. It'd be great to not have to do that. And so our hope and our goal is to raise the whole thing. And so as we look at some of those numbers, that could seem like a big number. We also have over 200 families in this church. I think last year our households that we're giving was something like 245. And so when we look at some of these things that are breaking out, one of the things that we're going to ask for tonight, and for you to prayerfully consider as this thing breaks down, of how we can do this together. And so, do you want to talk a little about the?
Yeah, I'll walk us through it a little bit. So we have broken down. If you can throw that chart up there, we have it. Great. It's a little small. So our legacy folks, I'll explain it for you.
It looked bigger on the computer screen when I threw it.
But essentially, what we're asking is 215 families 250? Sure. All right. To step up and give above and beyond this in the next 2 years, in addition to the giving that you're giving to the church, to give to this project. It's broken down. You can see a couple of really big gifts from $20,000 up to $150,000. There you go. Nice. That accounts for about $950,000 of the giving. And then you can see from $10,000 down to $1,000 over the course of the next 2 years. What that breaks out to on the far right column of monthly, if you were to commit to, say, giving $3,000 over the next 2 years, that'd be an extra $125 a month. And so as you look at that, you can see in the second column, that says families at the top. That's about how many families we need to step up to give at those different levels. Obviously, this will even out, and it won't be an exact science, but it's a general estimate of how many families we need in each area. Obviously, not everyone can give even $1,000 over the next 2 years, but chipping in any way and using it as an opportunity to, again, just practice generosity. Maybe it's $200 over the next 2 years. Maybe it's $500. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's $5. And man, God's going to do awesome work with whatever you can commit to. And so, as you look at this chart, as you look at that gift amount, what we are asking is for you to talk to your spouse, spend some time with the Lord together individually, and just see where you think your family could come in over the next 2 years. And whether that's a one-time gift in December or quarterly or monthly, that's about how we're breaking it down.
John, do you want to add to that?
I can add to that. Philippians 4:19 states, "With his abundant wealth through Jesus Christ, my God will supply all your needs." A pastor friend of mine tells the story that in the fall, getting ready for the next year, he made a pitch for pledges for the next year's budget. Young couple came up to him afterwards and said, "You've kind of convicted us. I think we can give a certain percentage of our income. It's going to be tough, but we'll try." A week later, they came back, all excited. They both received unexpected raises for their jobs. And they said, "Pastor, you're right. God is so good." Now, this is not something where you give something to get something. But what that demonstrates is you can't outgive God. He's given so much to this church, to the legacy, to you all at Desert City, and we'll go on together.
And so one of the things that we were asking tonight, some conversations have been going on. We've had some lead gifts committed already. As you can see how we knocked this out together. One of the sermon on Sunday, we talked about how this is a collective shout. This is how we can all shout and participate in different ways. If we had 10 families give 100,000, it'd be knocked out. So no, but we know. But I think what happens is we think like, oh, I can't do the big thing, so it feels daunting, and really everything comes together to help with this as we advance here in this place. And so the thing that we would ask you to consider praying about tonight, and if you came ready to give to this project, we'd take. If you want, there's offering boxes in the back. You can place it in there. But also, we want to know like with what we're working with, and so if you would take your commitment card, prayerfully consider it tonight, and bring it back on Sunday, and then place it in the offering box. And then that will help us organize this and be in touch on how to move forward. And so that would be a good practice to have, is to go home, pray, think about where you could fall in this on this chart here. And so we do believe that we can do this together, and that we have enough. And so, but a lot of that will come from our generosity and our trust in God and our participation in something that is an eternal body that we belong to. So um, I'm excited about where our church is heading. When I think about the whole property, I want to be here for as long as God would have me. I hope it's a 30-year um, project, and that's something that I can look back on and just see these different steps that we took, where we jumped across a river, we took a risk, and everyone gets to be a part of this story of seeing God break down barriers, of seeing God keep up the water that we can move across, and I'm excited for that. So as we close tonight, that's what the ask is. Some of those conversations have had. Now, there's different ways to give. I forgot about this. I want to mention this, and then we'll close our time in prayer. You can give online. There's a percentage that is taken from that. You can give by check. You can give through securities, and there's also a way to give through retirement accounts. We actually have a bunch of people here that work for Schwab, and I want to invite Tyler Melhorn up real quick to talk about one of the ways that we can give. And Tyler, it's a pretty cool story. He grew up in this church from the time he was a child. His parents were a part of launching the church, and look how great he has turned out. And so this is Tyler Melhorn, everyone.
So I am one of the legacy members, so I guess that means I'm old as well. Had the opportunity to be here when Pastor Bill gave his first sermon over at the ranch house. We were here when they did the cornerstone celebration, where they put the cornerstone into the sanctuary here. I've gotten to see this place expand and grow over the years. It's been fantastic to be part of that. I was really sad to see when it was shut down during COVID, trying to figure out what the future looked like. And just like John, hugely grateful when a miracle happened at Desert City and Paradise Church came together. It also personally has been a great time for us as a family, because I have a 13-year-old daughter now. And for the last 2 years, she's been able to come to youth group when that wasn't really available in the past. And, I remember the first time that she went to youth group. She was 11 years old. She just graduated 6th grade. She was going to get to go to the big kids youth group that night because they got to go and hang out with the high schoolers. And it was a real big deal for her, but she was a little nervous. And I took her there, walked her up. She was, she wanted me to walk her to the door, and I did. I dropped her off. A couple hours later, I came and picked her up, and I said, "Hey, how was it?" And she said, "Oh, Dad, it was great." Big old smile on her face. I said, "Why was it so great?" She said, "Well, we learned, we played, we had fun, we did events, we had snack, we learned about God, we learned how to pray." And I said, "Well, how was it hanging out with high schoolers?" She's like, "Oh, Dad, you know what? None of them were depressed. They weren't moody, and they actually were really nice to me." I said, "Wow, that's what children of Christ are, kid. You're gonna enjoy it." And she has. For the last 2 years, she's been coming, and she's really been having a great time. So as I mentioned, I do work for Schwab. I'm a senior wealth advisor with Schwab Wealth Advisory, which means I help the affluent clients at Schwab with their investment strategies, with retirement planning, financial planning, and their philanthropic goals. And when it comes to philanthropic goals and donating to charity, there's really 3 main ways that you can get that done. The first is, as they said, write a check, and more than likely you're going to be able to deduct that up to 60% of your AGI, your adjusted gross income. The second way is donating appreciated stock. And if you have a stock that you've held for more than a year that has capital gains with it, if you sell it, you're going to pay taxes on that. If you donate it to the church gets to sell it tax-free and gets the full benefit of that. You get to avoid having to pay capital gains, and you get the deduction of 30% of your adjusted gross income. But the third way, and this is a little lesser known, and this is going to be for probably more of the legacy members as well. But if you're subject to required minimum distribution, so if you're at the point in time where the IRS is forcing you to take money out of your retirement account, whether that's your 401k or your individual retirement accounts, you can do what's called a qualified charitable deduction, which allows you to take a portion of that required minimum distribution up to $100,000 a year and donate it to a qualified charity. It allows you to reduce your income dollar for dollar in what you would have otherwise been paying taxes on, because when you forced to take money out of your retirement account, that is considered income. And so it's one of the most tax advantageous ways of making a charitable donation. So I encourage you, if you are at that point in time and you've got questions on how to accomplish that, I'm available to talk to you after the meeting today. My personal email is on the back of the commitment card. So if you want to have a conversation, it's not through Schwab. This is through me as a member of the church. Please come to me, ask questions. I'm more than happy to help educate you, point you in the right direction, and really get you on track to take advantage of some of the things that there's out there to benefit when you're giving in this campaign.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We love avoiding taxes.
We're about 17 minutes over because we have an abundance mindset. So we're almost done. So I think if you have questions tonight, we'll be hanging out. Would love to chat through any questions that you have. Also, Sela's husband David is on our board. He also is an accountant and would be willing to answer any tax preparation questions as well. So thank you, Tyler, David. Church treasurer is Bill McClung. He's around here, and he knows everything. So if you have questions, you can ask him as well. All of their contact info is on that connection commitment card. And so I think that is all. Am I missing anything?
Only thing is the commitment card, it's not so that the church can shake you down. It's really for yourself. When you write it down and make that commitment, it's easy to make it verbally or even between you and your spouse. But there's just something special about getting it on paper. And I'd really encourage you, no matter where you're at, to fill that out, bring it back next week, and drop it off.
All right, John, do you want to close us in prayer?
Why don't we all stand? We'll pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we close this vision session in awe of the history of how far you have brought the people of this church. We are full of anticipation of the potential of how we can be an even greater influence to the people of this community. I ask that your Spirit speak to each person in this room as to how we can be more with talents and the resources that you've given to each one of us. May our hearts and minds be open to receiving your direction. Thank you so much for Janet Churchfield, her team, the students who served us tonight, and all the other volunteers and staff for making this such a great evening of dinner and fellowship. May we grow daily to you and equip each one of us to be your light in reaching others for you. We are so grateful for all the ways that you've blessed us. Thank you. In Jesus' name, amen.